Welcome to my channel, and I'm back with you once again with another video of Microsoft Flight Simulator 24. Nowadays I'm exploring the Cessna C408 Skycourier, and in this regard this is a complete video tutorial for this plane. In this video I will just take you through all the procedures, how to start this plane from the cold and dark state, how to enter the flight plan in the G100 as it is equipped with Garmin G100, and how to fly this plane on autopilot and performing an ILS approach and landing. I will just take you through the basic steps and procedures, and you can skip to any of the sections if you want. It's a very easy plane to fly, especially for those people who have been flying the Cessna 172. You will be able to fly it quickly because it has G1000. All you have to do is just understand some controls and some switches, how to start this plane from the cold and dark state, and that's it. You will be just flying this plane. The best thing about it is this, that it has a greater speed than 172, and it can go up to like 25,000 feet. So you can just have some high altitude flights with it, and you can just reduce the time of the flight if as compared to the Cessna 172. So this is the cockpit, and it's a really simple cockpit. You can see the three screens for G1000. This is the prime flight display. On the right hand side you also have the prime flight display. In the middle you have the navigation display. Now these levers have different functions. These two levers are known as the engine condition levers. They control the flow of the fuel to the engine, and these two levers, they actually control the pitch of the propellers, which changes the RPM, and then these two levers are for the thrust. So just make sure that the thrust is in the idle position, otherwise you will not be able to start the engines. Then this is the lever for the flaps. That's it. No landing gears. They are just extended throughout the flight. You cannot retract them. And let's get rid of the yoke first, and let's get some power in the plane. You can see this battery switch. If you move it towards the left side, you have the power from the ground power unit, and if you move it towards the right, then the batteries will start. That's it. Now we have some power in the plane. Now it's time to basically make sure that the emergency lights are armed, and then let's turn on the nav and the beacon light. As a beginner, I will just give you an introduction. The nav lights are on the wingtips. If you see a green light, you'll know that the plane is going towards its right side, especially in the night. And if you see a red light, it means the plane is going towards its left side. And then you have the beacon. This has to be on before you start the engine, because it will tell the ground staff that you're going to start the engine, and it remains on throughout the flight till the time you land and you turn off the engines. That's it. Now something about the propeller condition levers. They actually change the pitch of the propellers, and the RPM changes. They remain maximum during the takeoff. Then at the cruising altitude, you can reduce the RPMs, but you have to just reduce them in such a way that the speed doesn't reduce. And then you can just like have a good combination of the thrust and the pitch or the RPM in order to have a good speed at the cruising altitude. And then during the descent, you can even keep them in the idle position. Right now they moved to this position, feather, which basically changes the pitch of the propellers in such a way that they are aligned with the airflow. Right now you can see they're feathered. They actually don't create drag if they're in this position. So basically they are feathered right now, as you can see. But if I will move it forward, I have control T and G. By default you have it on the keyboard. If you press T, they will go all the way forward. Now you will see the pitch changing. So that's how the propellers work, and they propel the air. By the way, this was amazing. I really like it. This is the best turboprop plane that you can start with, and then you will be able to fly the ATR as well. So just make sure that these levers are all the way forward. You can use the keys T and G. That's it. Now over here you will see this option, auto ignition, for the left and for the right engine. So first of all, let's turn on the right engine, turn the switch on, turn on the boost, and then the starter. Now you can see NG, basically this is the rotation. It increases when it's at 12%. You can just move the right engine condition lever to have a good flow of the fuel. Just move it all the way forward. And now you can see that the right propeller is moving. Great. At 50%, just turn off the starter and the boost. That's it. And the auto ignition. So you can see you're getting some good NG. Great. Now, for the left engine, just repeat the procedure. At 12%, just move this lever all the way forward. Sorry, I was about to get rid of this caution. Now, just move it forward after 12%. And now the left engine will also start. That's it. So you keep on getting these warnings alerts, but that's it. Above 50%, you can just turn it off. And now you can fly this plane. Now there are a few things you have to do before you fly. Now these two switches are actually for the generator. They charge the battery. Just like in Cessna 172, you have alternator, so they work as an alternator. They charge the battery, so they have to be on. That's it. And then just arm auto feather. You will see this option over here, auto feather. So in case of an engine failure, the auto feather will happen as I've shown you before. So the angle of the blades will change, the propellers, to have some less drag. And that's it. And now it's time to turn on the bleed air. And that's it. And now you can press enter over here to get the navigation display working. So if you just turn it on, then the engine information will be shown over here. So first of all, let's open this electronic flight bag and let's select the departure. I will be doing this flight from Heathrow to Manchester. And the runway is already selected. I can select the departure, and this is going to be the one. I have already covered the flight planning part in one of my videos. I will also give you a link in the description. So you can just go and watch that video if you're not really familiar with the departure. And for the arrival procedures, I will give you this link. Because right now in this video, I just want to focus on how to enter this flight plan in the G1000 interface. So I can change the procedure and then I can find the route. And for the arrival, I can select, this is a arrival, change procedure, and that's it. So let's have a look at the flight plan. So this flight plan is there. And it's perfectly all right. So now the issue is this, that if I want to set this route to avionics, you will see nothing will happen. I'll just show it to you over here. It should appear over here. So it doesn't work. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to the screen by pressing Shift 2 and just enter the flight plan over here. So first of all, let's bring up the flight plan. And you have to get the cursor over here. So simply bring your mouse cursor over here on this knob. Hold it with your left mouse button and click it with the right. Now just move the bigger one to move your cursor. So for the origin, I will select EGLL, which is Heathrow. Just move the smaller one and you will be able to enter the airport. If you click this option, you will be able to enter the airport from your keyboard. So it's EGLL. And just press enter, and that's it. And then you have to enter all the waypoints over here. So the waypoints, let's start entering them. If you want to skip it, you can also skip it. But just to tell you that how you enter the waypoints, BUN. That's it. Enter. And then you have WELIN. enter. The next one is if you I'll just also skip one point and I will tell you if you want to enter a point between these 2 points. So let's say if I go to this one, the next one is Timpu. So that's it. Enter. Now you can see this flight plan is also getting updated over here. So it's good. Now you want to a waypoint between these 2 points. So it's a good way to do it. Just bring your cursor over here on this one, because if you'll insert anything over here, it will be inserted above it. So if I move this smaller one and if I enter it, AQUPA, the waypoints are a tongue twister. So it's there. So that's how you do it. Now bring it to the empty slot and over here, LVOS. Just enter it. Actually, I've selected this route because it has many waypoints. So that's why I just wanted to show you that how you enter the waypoints over here. And the last one is TNT. Enter. Yeah, not the one in Japan, United Kingdom. Enter. And now I can go to this option destination and I can select the airport, which is Manchester, EGCC, and press enter. That's it. And select none. Now the flight plan is there. All we have to do is just select the departure and the arrival procedures, and that's it. So you can go to this option procedure and select departure. First of all, you have to select the SID, enter, and which is UMLA1F. Just enter. Runway 27 right, it's automatically selected. And if you want to load it, you can just load it, enter, and that's it. And now for the approach, first of all, select the approach and then the arrival. For the approach, it's runway 23 right. So select runway 23 right, ILS. And no transition, just simply select vectors because I'm not using any transition for it. As you can see that it's direct. If I was selecting MCD, then I will select the transition over here. So right now I'm just going for a direct approach. And that's it. Transition is actually a point where the arrival procedure ends and the approach procedure starts. So that's the logic. If you want to skip it, you can always skip it. Oh, oops, what did I do? So I can just go back to the flight plan and procedure, approach, 23 right, enter, direct, and just load, and yes. And that's it. And for the arrival procedure, even if you want to skip this part, you can do it. Otherwise, you can select it. And it is this one. Just press enter, and it is for 23 right. Just press enter and load. Now let's look at the flight plan and let's see if it makes sense. Yes, it's just like the one that we... Let me just bring the cursor. So you can just bring the cursor and you can just go through this flight plan to see if it is okay or not. Now you can see at this point TNT, the plane is actually doing this kind of a loop. So I can delete it if you want. You can delete this loop. Simply clear and remove TNT, press enter, and it will be removed. And that's it. Now again, bring back the cursor. Sorry, just clear it. Flight plan. Bring the cursor again and just go through it. Again, this point is here, TNT, so I can clear it. Enter. If you see there is any issue in the flight plan, you can always change it. And now as I'm flying directly towards this point, so that's why you can see there is a discontinuity. So either for this point, you can just fly using the heading, or you can also change the procedure. So if I want to change the procedure, I can just go over here again. And for the approach, I can just press enter and press enter. Instead of, vectors, now it was actually, if you fly this flight plan, after this point, the plane will stop following the flight plan and it will just keep on going straight. So then you have to basically go into the heading mode, fly towards this waypoint, and then you can just follow this waypoint, or you can fly directly to this waypoint by using this option. But let's say if I select MCT, which is a transition, then this is the flight path. The plane will actually go to this point, and from here it will go right, and then it will just take this loop and it will go for the landing. So if I press enter, and if I just go down, and if I press enter, yes, it will be loaded. I can also look at the flight plan by bringing this cursor over here on the screen. It's easy to do it. Simply hold it with your left mouse button and then click it with the right one. Now you can just zoom in, and you can see that this flight plan is just like the one that we have already selected. And that's it. So it looks good. And if you want to zoom in, just bring your cursor to the point where you want to zoom in and just zoom in over there. But before I talk about the autopilot and talk about this flight, let's look at some levers in this plane. These two are the engine condition levers. They control the fuel flow to the engines, left and right. Then you have the propeller condition levers. They control the RPM of the propellers. And these two levers are for the thrust, which control the thrust generated by the engine. For takeoff, you take off with full RPM, and then during the cruise, you can reduce it by 100. Let's say if it's over here 1,700, maybe you can just reduce it to 1,600. Or on the cruise, you can keep it at 1,500. And for the descent, you keep them like really at idle. Okay, and then you control the speed with the help of the thrust levers. So I will demonstrate it to you in this flight. It's slightly different. Behavior is different because if you don't control the speed, this plane will keep on climbing. There is one issue. You have no idea how many times I've restarted this video. So I will just explain it to you. Now for the autopilot, you have different options. Over here you will look at this button nav. Now if you press this button nav on the prime flight display, on this part, this is actually the FMA flight mode enunciator, or the FMA. You will see GPS appearing, which means that the plane will now follow the GPS flight plan. So if GPS is there, the plane will follow the GPS flight plan. But if you press the nav again, you will see roll is written, which means that the autopilot will maintain the roll of the plane. The plane will not turn left or right. It will just keep on going straight, but it will not follow any flight plan, not the heading or not the GPS flight plan. So that's why you have to be either in the nav mode or you want to be in the heading mode if you want to set the direction of the plane. Then the pitch is being shown, PIT, which means that the plane will, or the autopilot will maintain the pitch of the plane, whatever the pitch of the plane was at the time when you activated the autopilot. So I will just take it out of the pitch mode and I will bring it to the vertical speed. This is basically your climb rate or descent rate, and I will set it to, let's say 3,000. For this flight, it can climb at 3,000. And I can set the altitude. For this flight, I will be climbing up to 20,000. That's it. So this is what's required. Over here on your screen, R is written. It's shown over here as 85. This is basically the speed at which I will be pulling back on the yoke and lifting this plane up in the air. Then you have this Y speed. This is basically the speed at which you can just go up to this altitude in the shortest time. And X is the speed, the ideal or the optimum speed at which you can have a very nice angle of climb, a very high climb rate in the shortest of the distance. And G is basically the speed at which you can just like follow the glide slope. It's like the optimum speed. But obviously, I will be going more than Y. I will show it to you in the slide. It's basically difficult to keep it at 105. It's a bit tricky with this plane. I will just explain it to you once I take off. Now let's set the altimeter. You can see this is the barometric pressure which is being shown over here. I am right now flying in clear skies. That's why it's 1013. Otherwise, whatever you get from the weather, you have to just enter it over here. And you can just get it from this information, weather. If you click it, you get the air pressure. So, but I'm right now flying in clear skies. That's why it's 1013. And the transition altitude at which I will actually be changing this barometric pressure, the given one, to the standard, will be determined by the standard instrument departure, or the chart which shows the departure. I'm using this one. So you can see the transition altitude for this runway and for this airport is 6,000. So after 6,000, I will be changing it to standard. If you want to change the units, you can just press PFD options, altimeter units, inches or HPM. You can just change it from here. And if you want to take it to the standard, then you can just press it and it will go to the standard. I will just show it to you in this video. I hope I don't forget it. Usually I'm forgetting it, okay? Because in the Airbus, it keeps on blinking, so you know when to change it. Okay, because while you're recording a video, your mind is like going here and there. You're thinking about different things, so that's why I might skip. This is the autopilot button. So right after the takeoff, I will press this autopilot button and take this plane in the autopilot mode. So everything is now good. Let's set the flaps to position 1. This is the flap setting that I will be using for the takeoff. Now let's release the parking brake, which is over here. And let's take this plane up in the air. I will not give full throttle. You will hear a beep. Just slightly reduce your thrust levers. Now after this, just reduce it when you hear this ping sound. And just get rid of this caution. Now you can see R is nearing. I can just like lift it up. And now the plane is up in the air. Now with this, I can activate autopilot. Now with the autopilot active, you can see that the plane is trying to keep this speed. The vertical speed, which is 3000, as mentioned over here in the FMA. I can reduce it. So let's say if I reduce it to 2000, you will see the vertical speed will reduce, but the speed will increase. Which shows that this mode, in this mode, the autopilot is giving priority to the vertical speed. So no matter what the speed is, the vertical speed will be maintained, but your speed will be compromised. So when I reduced the vertical speed, you can see the speed was increasing. But if I increase the vertical speed, you will see it will decrease. Let's say if I go further up, you can see now the speed is getting compromised. But if I press this button, flight level change, let's say if the plane stabilizes at, let's say, on speed 130. I think the plane is also at a very high altitude. I can reduce the RPMs. Let's say it's 1700 roughly. I can press G on my keyboard and these propeller condition levers will move back, and with T they go full. Okay, so I can press G. You see, this is the error that's coming. So you have to basically also reduce the thrust. And now with this, you can reduce the RPM. So if I just bring the RPM to, let's say, 1600, you can see it's reducing. And now with this, you can see the speed is getting reduced. So I can at this time press this button, FLC, flight level change. Now the vertical speed is no longer the priority for the autopilot. Now the speed is the priority. As now I'm above 7,000, I wanted to set this altimeter to standard. Now the standard barrow is appearing. Now the plane has actually locked the speed 116 knots, and it will keep on climbing at this speed, and it will keep on changing the vertical speed. So now in this mode, the vertical speed is no longer the priority, rather the speed is the priority. So 116 will be maintained and the plane will keep on climbing. I will keep the RPM at 1600 like this, and once the plane is at the cruising altitude, then I will just further reduce it to 1500, or I can even reduce it to 1400. You will even hear the sound will also reduce for the propellers, and that's it. But in this case, what if I reduce the thrust? If I reduce the engine thrust, now you will see what will happen. Even with this, the vertical speed has started to drop, because the plane cannot handle this. So that's why you have to adjust your thrust levers in even such a way that the vertical speed remains. Your plane actually maintains this speed, and the vertical speed is also good. So that's how you basically manage it, the thrust lever and the propeller condition levers. RPMs you don't change a lot, because at any time you need power, so that's why the propeller should be rotating at the same speed, and you can just change the thrust using the thrust levers. Right now you can see that with this given thrust setting, the vertical speed is 1700, but what if I increase the thrust? You can see the vertical speed is increasing. So I can now even adjust the vertical speed with the help of the thrust. The plane will maintain 116 knots, and it will then adjust the vertical speed as per the thrust given by the engines. So this is something that you have to consider. Now that's it. So the flight is on autopilot. The plane is following the GPS flight plan. Autopilot is active, as you can see it in the FMA, and right now the speed is my priority. So this was about the condition and propeller condition lever and the thrust lever. That's it. Now let's talk about the navigation, the lateral navigation. Now I can at any time just press this heading mode, and the plane will actually fly in the heading, whatever this heading bug is indicating towards. As you can see, I can move this knob or even this knob to change the heading, and the plane will change. And if I press nav again, the plane will go back to the GPS mode, and it will start following this flight mode. Another thing, let's say if your GPS bug, this is actually the knob for the heading, and this is your heading bug. Sorry, I called it the GPS bug. The heading bug is over here in this direction, and you want to point it towards the direction in which the plane is going right now. Just bring your cursor and hold it with your left mouse button and press it with the right one, and it will just get aligned with the current heading. So now if I take this plane out of this heading mode, and if I just try to divert from this flight plan, the plane will no longer follow this GPS flight plan. If I just change the zoom, you can see it has now started to divert. Now this is basically your CDI, which is the course deflection indicator, and this is the CDI needle, which tells you how much deflection you have from the course, or where the course actually is. So if it's towards the right side, it means you have to go towards the right side. If it's on the left side, it means you have to go towards the left side. So right now you have a deviation towards the right side, and this is actually your course. So not only you have to turn in this direction, but rather you have to intercept this line. So if you want to follow this course, either you can press the nav again. Let me see if the plane goes back to this mode. Now right now you can see heading is appearing instead of GPS. If I press nav, now it has started to show heading, but it also has locked GPS. Now, and the plane is not going back to this flight plan, although it should go back to this flight plan. Now, in this kind of a mode, you basically change the heading and you try to intercept this flight path. And once the plane intercepts this flight plan, the plane the autopilot again goes back to the GPS nav mode rather than this heading mode. So that's how you do it if you deviate from the course. I can turn further towards right before this point umlaut, or at this point I can even press direct and just type in the name of this waypoint and I can fly directly towards this point. I can also do this. So let the plane go to this point. I can turn further. Now you can see this course deflection needle has started to move inside. And now you can see the plane is back in the GPS mode and heading has disappeared and it's blinking. So it means the plane is now following this GPS flight plan. So it's really simple. And then there are many other things that you can just do with this plane. Just one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning of this video is this, that to make sure the flight director is on. If you see this magenta arrow, this is basically the flight director. So just make sure it's appearing over here on the prime flight display. You have to just turn it on. But for this plane, it's by default on. You really don't have to turn it on. If it's not on, then the plane will not follow this GPS flight plan. Now actually I'm waiting for the plane to reach the top of climb, which is 20,000 feet. And once the plane is cruising at 20,000 feet, then I will show you how basically this plane behaves. Because if you don't reduce the RPM on the thrust, this plane will keep on climbing. And during the descent it also happens. Now you heard the sound. That means that the plane is about to level off in the next 1,000 feet. So right now it is at 19,200. Now the plane should level off at this altitude, but if it doesn't, then you can reduce the thrust and now the plane will level off. And that's how you do it. I just reduced the thrust a bit and the plane has started to level off if it doesn't level off. Now even at this altitude, we don't need so much power or the RPMs. I can further reduce it. I can keep it at 1,500. And if I press G on my keyboard, you will see the RPMs will further reduce, changing the pitch of the propellers, and RPM is getting reduced. And you will hear that the sound of the propellers have also reduced. And that's it. Now the plane has leveled off at 20,000 and now the speed is increasing. If I, let's say now with this setting of the RPM, now the plane will keep on flying in the same RPM. Now with this, you can see very less increase in the speed, or rate of change is really low for the speed. But if I give thrust maximum, if I move it, just get rid of the error. If I keep it over here, you will see the speed is now increasing. Even you can do this. And RPMs will remain the same. And now the speed is reducing because the plane started to climb. So that's how you basically control it. And that's you don't want to do. So that's how you manage the thrust and plus the propeller condition levers. Now you can see I've reduced the thrust and the plane is now going back to 20,000. It started to climb. As I told you before, it will happen. I can further reduce the thrust and now you can see the vertical speed is more. So it's a bit tricky like this in this plane. So you have to just control the thrust levers and plus the propeller condition levers. And now you can see the plane will level off at 20,000. And then you can adjust the thrust levers that the plane keep on flying at 20,000. And now I can increase the thrust. You can see the vertical speed will start to reduce. It's going back when I'm increasing the thrust. And that's it. If you look at your screens, you will see that I'm near this top of descent, which is this point. LVOS, and this point is like 14 minutes away. The target speed or the target vertical speed after this point will be 922. Can I see the altitude if I press this flight plan again and bring the cursor by pressing it with the left mouse button, holding it with the left mouse button and then right clicking? I can get the cursor, and then you can see that the next waypoint is Dane, and I should be at 8,000 feet. So the altitude to which I should be descending is 8,000. So I will descend to 8,000. And there's another thing. Let's look at the airport chart, and for Manchester, 23 right approaches, and I will just keep this approach plate over here because, as a beginner, I would just like to take you through all the procedures for the approach as well. Now for this approach plate, as you can see, I should be at 3,500. So after 8,000, after Dane, I will again descend to 3,500 because this is the altitude at which I should be intercepting the localizer. And then the plane will actually follow this glide slope. Now the heading of the runway is 232 degrees, and the ILS, DME actually is distance marine equipment, and ILS is instrument landing system. So the frequency is 109.5. As you can see, it's entered over here. But if it's not, then you can just move this smaller knob to change the digits after the decimal, and you can move the larger one to change the numbers before the decimal. So it's 109. This is funny. I think 109 is already there. That's why it's not getting there. It's really ridiculous. I cannot get 9. Anyhow, not my fault. Let me try it over here. 110, and straight away goes to 100. It should show me 109. Maybe some error right now in the simulator. Anyhow, 109.5 is there, and the identifier for this localizer is INN, and that's it. So localizer is actually a device placed at the start of the runway which emits radio signals, and the plane actually follows that. Localizer gets you your lateral alignment with the runway, that you're aligned with the runway or not, and plus there is a glide slope which directs you through this vertical path that you have to follow. It's actually a 3-degree descent. Now the plane is near the top of descent, so let's set the altitude. I will be descending to 8,000 feet initially, and then afterwards to 3,500. That's it. For the descent, I will bring these 2 levers, which are the propeller condition levers, to the idle position. They control the RPM, the pitch of the propellers. So RPM should be, less. And then I will control the speed using the thrust levers, which are these. And now let's reduce the RPM. I have this key G on the keyboard to reduce it. If you have a controller, then it's good. Otherwise, you can use the key on the keyboard. Now you can hear that the sound has reduced a little bit. No effect on the speed. Little bit, yeah, effect on the speed. Now the vertical speed, suggested vertical speed is 923, so I can just press the vertical speed and I can reduce it to 900, and now you can see the descent has started. But now the speed is increasing, due to which the descent will not be 900 feet per minute. If I want 900 feet per minute, then I have to reduce the thrust. And I'm, moving this lever. So even if I bring it to idle, then you can see the vertical speed is reducing and it will stabilize at 900. And now even if it's going up to 1000. So I can just adjust the thrust levers in such a way that the speed doesn't increase or decrease so much, and the vertical speed remains at 900. If I increase it further, let me just get more speed, and that's it. So now it will be at 900. Another thing that I can do is this: at 130 I can press this flight level change, and now the vertical speed will be changed. So it's better to descend using the the flight level change option rather than going with the vertical speed. Flight level change is better because right now flight level change has actually locked the speed at 129 knots, and now the vertical speed is getting adjusted. If I want a higher vertical speed right now, so with the vertical speed it was getting a bit difficult, but with the flight level change I can just reduce the thrust. You can see I've just set it to idle, and now the vertical speed is changing, and the required the target is like, let's say, 1200. So I can adjust the thrust lever in such a way that the vertical speed is adjusted. So that's how you basically control the descent of this plane. It's actually a twin turboprop plane, and the settings are a bit different. If you're used to Cessna 172, then you will struggle with it. You have to keep an eye that the thrust levers are in such a position that you get the vertical speed that you want with the RPM to the minimum in the idle position, and these levers will remain in this position till the landing. I will just then change the speed using the thrust levers. Now the plane is cruising at 8,000 feet, and the speed is at 135 knots. It's approaching now Dane at 8,000 feet, and then at this point MCT 3,500. So after Dane I have to start the descent. So let's reduce the altitude to 3,500. Now it's time to start the descent, and it has already started because I activate this VNAV, vertical path, after this point. So it automatically started. Now let's reduce the thrust so that the speed doesn't increase so much. Now with this VNAV, I press this button, and now you can see the plane is actually following this path. So the target vertical speed is 1,045.46 feet per minute. It's changing, and the plane is actually meeting it. And the vertical deviation from the vertical path is like 16 feet below. But the autopilot will keep on managing it. What if I increase the thrust? Now you can see as I've increased the power, the vertical speed reduced a bit, and now the vertical deviation is in the positive. So it should remain negative. Let's reduce the thrust. This is better. So let's keep the speed 136, 137, or maybe at 135. These indicators are basically for this vertical path. As you can see, it's in the middle, so it means the plane is following the vertical path. There is no deviation. If it was below, then it means you're above this vertical path, and if it was over here, it means you're below the vertical path. So the plane is actually following it, as you can see. Now the plane is leveling off at 3,500. I will slightly increase the thrust, and you will see that the vertical speed is now going to 0. So that's how you control the descent. If you see that the vertical speed is not reducing, then you have to adjust the thrust lever. Otherwise, it will just keep on descending and descending. So as now the plane is aligned with the approach, I can get the heading bug in the middle, because I have to change this mode. Instead of now the GPS mode, I will flying in this heading. So localizer 1, you have the ILS. I can get to this PFD option, and bearing 1, I can get ILS nav 1 over here. So plane is bit far, that's why it's not picking up the frequency. Otherwise it will, and it's near. And it's 109.5. Just cross checking, everything is good. And the course is 232, so you can see the course is set. Otherwise you can just adjust the course. You can see, you can keep it at 232. So just like the GPS, it will also show you any deflection from the course. This is the course deflection needle. And you can see this diamond is also appearing. It's coming in the middle. What I can do is this. I can activate approach right now. So you can see this button, approach APR. Just press it, and now you will see localizer. Now the plane will actually align itself with the runway. Now it is actually doing the lateral navigation, and now it has also started to follow the glide slope. And now the descent has started. I can reduce the speed further, and bring the thrust levers to idle position. Propeller condition levers are already in the idle position, so everything is good. Below 110 knots, I can start extending the flaps. But remember this thing, as soon as you will extend the flaps, the plane will pitch up. This is something that you have to, manage. It will pitch up, and then you have to give thrust. So it's a bit tricky to manage it. If you see that the plane is not climbing, then give thrust. So that's how you actually control it. Now it's going back, and now it start to descend again. It's very interesting that for the nav and ILS, information is not there, the distance, although we can just look at the distance over here. 6.6 nautical miles away. Heading is 231 degrees. 232, 231. Now at this time, I can also disengage the autopilot. And I can just take the control in my hands. I will pitch up a bit, reduce the speed so that I can extend the flaps. Now full flaps for the landing, and now I can follow this glide slope and adjust the speed accordingly. For this propeller reverse thrust, they are already configured on my keyboard. It's F and R. With F, the thrust reduces, and with R, it increases, as you can see. So I will use F and R to basically control the thrust. F to activate the reverse thrust for the propellers. These are basically the default settings for the keyboard, so I'm not just like introducing any new control to this plane to confuse you guys more. So I haven't configured it on my thrust master quadrant.
Four hundred.
So PAPI lights too white, too red. It means I'm following the glide slope. Let's go and reduce the thrust. And
200. 100.
And that's it. I will just pitch up the nose a bit. And F. So the reverse thrust was active, and now that's it. It jumped the plane. Anyhow, that was an interesting landing because of some choppy graphics. At the end, I've been trying to configure the graphics settings a lot, but still, I don't know. At some airports, this thing happens. This thing always happens when I'm landing in Manchester. Just when I'm short of the runway, the choppy thing happens. Yeah, I'm sorry for that. And hopefully, this was a useful video for you. Now you will be able to, you can see, the graphics are like going really crazy right now. So hopefully this was a useful video for you. Now I will exit the runway and I will park this plane. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the comment section, or if you want to add anything to this video, the comment section is there for you. Thank you very much for staying with me. Have a nice day. Hope to see you soon.